And also just acknowledging that in many of the scenes, I'm more childlike, I'm more insecure. I'm trying to be right. Whenever somebody's trying to always be right, that it has to kind of expose that they're the one that is a bit infantile, if you will.
In the film, you are the adult that's forcing or pushing against Renee's secret. How do you balance the being the obstacle without sort of overshadowing the heart of Renee's story, or was that already just in the writing?
I think that's that, it's a really great question. I think it's a moment where I'm remembering that God gave us two ears for a reason. So just really listening to her, not just as
Mm.
Renee, but as Lulu. I like, don't really, I know Marlon Brando said it years ago, which was, it is a misnomer, but I got what he was getting at when he said anybody could act. And, or any old idiot could do it. I think is specifically how he stated it. But just being present for someone who's playing someone.
Mm.
I think that was the key is just really listening to Lulu. And then the writing does take care of itself as Lulu per Renee. But just really kind of just taking her in between takes, you know what I mean? Just really listening to her and trying to lift her and love on her in whatever way possible. I don't take it lightly when you're on set with a young adult. You're really aiding in the molding of their whole lives. So I kind of dial up my ear. I'm, always a pretty solid listener, but I think I dial it up a whole nother level when I'm with young people. So I think that's the only way to get away with not squandering this beauty inside of her and this imaginative, anything's possible sort of spirit that she inhabits. And also just acknowledging that in many of the scenes, I'm more childlike, I'm more insecure. I'm trying to be right. Whenever somebody's trying to always be right, that it has to kind of expose that they're the one that is a bit infantile, if you will.
That actually is a great segue to my next question, because I know that you're often drawn to roles that have a lot of strength and intensity. So, what was exciting for you to step into this sort of authority role, kind of chasing the mystery instead of being the hero at the center of it?
The cowboy boots mattered, or at least the thought that I could wear cowboy boots as this character. I immediately wanted that. Matty Oates had no issue with it, and our costume designer followed suit. So that's the only thing I knew I wanted to fight for. Um, and it immediately put me in this space. Um, and I realized that if I could pull it off, it would equally come with me sounding like this Western character, if you will, and that the quiet spiritual tumbleweeds that were blowing by, um, the likes of what we saw the Coen brothers create in No Country for Old Men, right? It was a little bit of that. And what we saw in Fugitive. I kind of also thought, what we saw in Fugitive really allowed for me to think about this guy being someone who is a character that I've never worn before, to your great question. Definitely played some duplicitous, maybe sort of layered characters that are similar to him, but not in the sense that he's just this sort of lone wolf who probably doesn't have much of a conversation with many people. The only conversation he really had was with his car, the little car that he kept.
And that leads me to my last question because I mean, you're just setting me up great, wonderfully. He is essentially the men in black presence in the
Yeah,
film. You know, were you leaning more towards like intimidating, mysterious? Because you did sneak a little charisma underneath the badge. So, what when you were approaching this, it was like you kind of are the men in black in this scenario.
yeah. I think he is the man in black or the men in black, and it's interesting that you say that because I guess when thinking about the fugitive, Tommy Lee pulled off both. No slights to what Will Smith did on his side of black, but Tommy Lee Jones has always been able to carry this sort of mystique about him where you're left really wondering. And I really was excited about playing a character that if we watched the character play out in trilogy form, would we ever get much more? Or would everything be kept close to the vest? And that's what I was trying to play, where you didn't know the answer. You might get more in part two. You might not get more. You might get it all in part three. But I wanted to at least start this guy off, the genesis of this guy being one that had a charm about him, but the charm was offset with this aggression where he ends up taking Lulu's hand. And as Renee does some wild things with her hand, like you can't really predict what this guy's going to do. But as much as Croak is unpredictable, I wanted Keys to be a bit unpredictable as well.